Head over to our Seattle Kraken. And Bel, why don't I have you look at those scores?
Yeah. So on March 28th against the LA Kings at LA Kings, they won 6-1. Player of the game was one player of the game. We got two different ones here. Was Chris Driedger. Okay, I didn't want to say that wrong. With 36 saves and a .973%
Save
save
percentage.
percentage. Player of the game two was Adam Larson with 1 goal, 1 point,
3 plus minus.
3 plus minus, 1 shot on goal, and 3 hits. On the 30th versus the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they lost 0-3, and we have no player of the game for that because a shutout loss and garners no player of the game. On April 1st, they played the Golden Knights once again and lost 2-5. And the player of the game there was Will Borgen, 1 assist, 1 point, 2 plus minus, 6 hits, and 1 block. On April 3rd, they played the Dallas Stars and won 4-1. Player of the game one, again, Chris Driedger, 29 saves, a .967 save percentage. And the player of the game two was Carson Soucy, 2 assists, 2 points, 1 plus minus, 1 shot on goal, and 4 hits. And I just will say that it feels like Carson Soucy is on the player of the game list very often.
Oh, so I like that you point that out, right? Because we had the trade deadline episode, right? And there were reports that came out that Soucy had been called about. Teams were like, "Hey, are you gonna trade that guy?" And they said
we're interested.
They wanted to keep him.
Yeah.
And Carson's been able to really be. I mean, I looked at the advanced metrics side of things. I'm not the biggest analytics guy, right? I'm not saying no to it. I just don't know it all, right? Soucy was at the top of the list for player of the game in terms of total value for that game against Dallas. I wanted to highlight Driedger, take a moment to highlight Driedger because in his last however many starts, I'd say maybe 5, he's been excellent. You look at obviously he didn't have shutouts, but he was excellent, and he was in goal for that March 30th game that we talked about. That those goals really weren't on him. And it's tough as a goalkeeper because you will get goals that aren't on you.
Yeah.
It's not like some sports where you can control everything. It was really interesting, and I wanted to mention that because in the press conference the morning of the April 1st game, Philipp Grubauer was in net, and the question was asked, why is Gruby in net as opposed to Driedger, who's had some great starts.
Mm-hmm.
And goalkeeper management has been something that's been talked about all season with Hextall. We'll talk about at the end of the year. But Hextall said he wanted good play and leadership in net. Now, what that means, I don't know, because I've talked to a few of my guys that I work with in the press box at these games, and they said, yeah, we don't know what that's about. That's really weird to say, and it's kind of ironic. Because as a goalie, it's like, I don't know how much the leadership aspect's kind of weird, because goalies really don't get the captain's patch or the alternate captain's patch anyway. So it's just that this leadership idea was kind of funny because then, he talks about that the morning of, and then Seattle loses that game. 5 goals happen. I had a buddy who asked about it, how he thought Grubauer played. And I like Grubauer, but just the comment that was made is something that stuck with me. And Hextall was like, oh, he played fine. And that's where it ended. That's it. Yeah, that's where it ended. Oh but Chris Driedger, the thing with him was, I don't know how much of it you followed with the team starting. He was brought in to be the starter this year in the offseason. And then we found out that Grubauer was going to be a free agent. He wasn't going to sign with the Avalanche. So I was like, oh, you've got a guy who almost won the goalkeeper trophy last year, and he's on the market. You want to go get him.
Yeah.
And in hockey, it's really important to have 2 good goalkeepers because you're going to have to switch them out. You can't have one guy play all of the games. And so it probably, like, if I brought you in to be a co-host, right, and I'd tell you this is your job, you're going to be the person that's going to be here. And then I have someone else.
Someone new and shiny.
And I said, Salman, he's a free agent. I really want him in my spot right here. And what does that do to your psyche, right?
No,
you told me I was going to be here, and now I'm like playing second fiddle. I'm the unwanted person. So it's been tough for him, and so I applaud the fact that he's been able to have good games despite kind of the situation he's in, and I hope there's no like rift between the 2 goalies.
You would hope that not between them, of course, between management maybe. But.
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight that. But yeah, Carson Soucy, it's been interesting to see that teams called about him at the deadline, and since then they talked about it in the broadcast. I think it was Allison Lucan who does the analytics part. So he looks like he's playing more free, like a little looser on his sticks, not worried about playing to a certain level. He knows he's going to be on the team, and he's able to be himself. So that's really good. We head over to our team news on the first of the month. Goalkeeper Joey Decord earns AHL Goaltender of the Month honors for March, down with the Charlotte Checkers. His stats for the month of March: a 6-win, I think it was a 1-loss record, 1.55 goal allowed on average, and a .956 save percentage over the month of March. Also won the first, forward Cole Lind scored his first NHL goal of his career in a loss to the Golden Knights. On the 3rd of the month, forward Morgan Geekie played in his 100th NHL game. In league-related news, the Philadelphia Flyers' Keith Yandel, his Ironman streak ended on Saturday against the Maple Leafs. He did not see any action, so he ended his Ironman streak of 989 consecutive games played in the NHL.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a lot. Considering that there's like 80-something games in an NHL season. So he's
quite the record there.
That's just, it's not saying he's started all of them. He's got some action on it.
Yeah.
Kind of funny to look at. And I mean, just looking at that consistency is incredible to think about. So we look at upcoming for our Kraken here, looking to, well, I want to look at this first. In the press conference last night, a lot of the players before this have said, you want to finish out the season right. You want to build an identity. You want to improve. Mm-hmm. And they look like they've been doing that. But what Hextall said at the end of the night was really nice. He said that you could go out there this final month. It's going to be a busy month. You want to go out there. You want to have fun. You want to win games. I don't know if I want to say you want to kick some ASS, and you just want to have fun doing all of it.
Yeah.
And it was good to see that because despite me talking about the leadership thing with Hextall, what I will say about someone who's been in the press conferences, he always is really responsive to media. And I like that's that. So you'd like to just see improvement and that the team stays in it this last final month because they play a lot of teams that are battling for playoff spots. So we'll get to that here. In upcoming, the team record sits at 22 wins, 41 losses, 6 overtime losses, resulting in 50 points. They sit at 8th in the Pacific, and that hasn't changed for probably since the season began. Looking ahead, they will take on the St. Louis Blues on the road on April 6th at 5 o'clock. St. Louis has the 3rd overall spot in the Central Division, and 4th in the Western Conference. April 7th at the Chicago Blackhawks at 5:30. And then April 9th back here at Climate Pledge Arena versus the Calgary Flames, who are in a prime playoff spot at 4 o'clock. So all of those games, if you are in the Seattle area, I think even in the Washington area, maybe more so Pacific Northwest, if you've got Root Sports, you'll be able to watch it on Root Sports. If you're out of the market, those games are going to be on ESPN+.
Okay.